Excited about having to deliver this presentation because it is indeed a real story about the Department of Home Affairs, and I will be referring to it quite affectionately as the DHA because it's a journey that we are actually living right now on a daily basis, and it's a highly challenging journey which we as the leadership are very excited about, because it's an opportunity for us to really go out there and to make a difference, and where we can also show the public that we do indeed really care. So if I could tell you about the department, if I can get this to go. The DHA is a public service entity. It is a national department within the public sector. We are a fairly medium to large organization. We have about 9,000 employees. Our service offering we could actually describe as being a dual one, simply because we offer a cradle-to-grave service where every member or every citizen of the public would apply for a birth certificate, and as they progress through their life cycle and eventually in death, we will then issue a death certificate. And the second part to it is that we are responsible for immigration services, and we actually see our role as being a gatekeeper. And why we say that is simply because we give access to to foreigners into our country, and also giving access to our citizens outside of our country. And we also say that the Department of Home Affairs does indeed operate as a monopoly. And why? Simply because every citizen, it doesn't matter whether you are the president or whether you are king of any tribe within the country, you would have to come to Home Affairs. Whereas any other public entity, for example, education, as a citizen, I might have a choice. I might want to send my child to a public school, or I might want to send my child to private schooling. And the same would apply to actually the Department of Health and so on. So we are very mindful of the role that we are playing in the fact that every citizen would need to come to us. With regards to the actual transformation process of the Department of Home Affairs, it actually began quite a long time ago at the inception of the new democracy since 1994, where the Department of Home Affairs was actually formed to replace the fragmented and racially based department that it was previously. From 2004 to 2007, there was more of a consolidation and growth around the organization as a national department that was seen more as essential to actually deliver a service. Between 2007 and 2009, this is where the turnaround program was actually launched, following the 2 audit disclaimers and the public dissatisfaction that we were receiving around poor service delivery and particularly corruption within the Department of Home Affairs. So this is indeed the time where the transformation process really began. Consultants were then brought into the organization to specifically look at our processes and our systems and how those could be enhanced, and then later the people side of it. But what we have found since our new minister has joined, since 2009 to 2010-11, is that the same challenges that we were facing throughout that history are still appearing as we move along, even though, yes, we are improving, but some of the challenges still do remain. So right now, since our new minister has joined, we have been focusing on mobilizing the department and all its partners to actually secure the identity and the citizenship of every South African. So what you will see is that we've actually redefined our role somewhat. And at the heart of the repositioning of the department, we are saying that we are now seeing Home Affairs firstly as a security department, and we are striving to become a department of excellence. Home Affairs is a department that we want to see as an employer of choice within the public sector, and we want to also see ourselves as a learning organization. Now, particularly from a human resources perspective, we want to also reposition ourselves in support of the strategy around changing the organizational culture and then developing a new cadre. With regards to the organizational culture, we are focusing on transforming the hearts, heads, and hands of our people to improve our services to the public. And of course, we are building the security consciousness levels of our people so that they can have a better understanding of that gatekeeping role that they need to play. Within the cadreship framework that we've already developed, we've specifically focused on the values, the attitudes that we want to see our employees begin to espouse, and these have also been clearly identified. So what we envisage is that if any DHA employee would walk through that door, any one of the citizens should be able to recognize that person immediately in terms of their look, their feel, their professionalism, and everything. So that's where we want to get to in terms of that. As a security department, we are saying that we want to further streamline our processes and procedures to reduce the complexity and the turnaround times that we've been facing with regards to our ID processing and our immigration applications. We also want to ensure that we begin to manage the whole migration process into South Africa more closely. We want to also apply a proactive approach to control foreign migrants and residents into the country. And we are also saying that we want to manage residency and citizenships a lot more closely. But within that, from a people perspective, we want to ensure that the HR strategy is also aligned or is relevant to not only a service department, but also a security department. So generally what we are saying from a security perspective, we're focused a lot more on the civic side of our business, where processes have been enhanced and the public is beginning to see the change and the difference. We will now begin to move more closely into overhauling our immigration and our approach then. In terms of becoming an employer of choice, this actually links very closely to our attractivity and being an ideal employer within the public sector. Internally, we want to ensure that we provide our employees with what I would call an experience that would want them to actually remain within the organization. And we also then want to be able to, when we externally go out of the organization, be able to attract the right caliber of people into the DHA. And of course, based on the history we've had, we're having difficulty in terms of that, but that's something that we need to turn around. And I'll explain to you all the interventions that we are looking at. And also we want to ensure that we have employees who eventually will say, I feel proud, patriotic, passionate, and dedicated to working for such an exceptionally performing organization. And we also want to say that the employee himself would be able to describe that experience, that they would be able to say we have a good experience and therefore I will be able to give the client or the public that same experience. And what is underlying here for us is that we believe that the strength of an organization definitely lies in the quality of its people. Okay, and then as a learning organization, we are in the process of building our learning academy. We want to ensure that we have a world-class academy. We want to reposition the learning academy internally within the organization first, where we want to build a culture of constant learning, security consciousness, and service delivery. We want to build capacity and capability of all our managers and leaders and staff to ensure that we have the right skills levels within the organization. And what we are also saying is that we want to definitely then create or confirm or promote constant learning within the organization. And in one of her speeches, our minister specifically referred to the fact that she sees this as a process that will create public servants who are humble but also committed to the department. Just in terms of the strategic overview, we had actually redefined ourselves as we've already redefined ourselves as a department, and we see ourselves as playing a central role in national security. And therefore, we are also saying that there are 7 key strategic areas that we will be focusing on throughout the organization. And one will be on our people. The second one will be in terms of our systems, because if you look at the DHA context or the environment, it is highly systems driven. The other area we will be focusing on very particularly is building partnership with all our communities, and you will see what we have done in that regard already. And also, we want to contribute significantly to the fight against corruption, and we're also saying that we want to have capacity to work strategically and effectively within the state as a whole. Our people strategy, what is important about it is that we've ensured that it does mirror and support the organizational goals and objectives. Our vision within HR is that we want to have exceptional performing employees so that we can become an employer of choice, but also we want to partner the business internally or partner the organization internally. And key in terms of that strategy, our mission would be to attract, retain, and develop the right people for their competence firstly, and secondly for their attitude. We also want to ensure that the experience that the person has, and I'm sorry there's no pointer here, but it's really the life cycle of the employee as they enter, right up until such time that they would exit the organization. It begins actually before the employee joins, where we say we will have pre-orientation programs and processes that will then align the employee or prospective employee to the organization. We will then ensure that once we've acquired that person, we will look at how we reward and compensate them, develop them, how we will then manage their careers so that we can have a more effective workforce and eventually have exceptional performance within the organization. We are saying that what is important within our people strategy is that it must also be integrated or must be derived from the organizational strategy. So we will look at this as a whole, where we'll be building capability through teams and also building capability up to the individual level so that we get to understand every individual more closely. In other words, what is it that would make that individual person tick? Because what makes Avril tick in an organization versus a Lena or somebody else is totally different. And therein lies the challenge, particularly for HR, and how we would like to then retain our employees eventually. So the people strategy as an organization design must support the organizational mandate, and it is within this context that we want to make sure that the people strategy is also then relevant to being a security and service organization and carrying that philosophy of caring. Okay, the transformation process that we are following, or that we have then built our strategic plans with, and sorry, it's a 3 to 5 year plan that we've actually developed. We've also launched our whole transformation agenda. But in essence, if you look at it, there are a number of elements that we have already begun to look at in this regard. Okay, and these link specifically to all of these. I won't read them out, but I would like to get to a point where I'll begin to now tell you about what it is exactly that we are doing in terms of all of this. This is the part now that gets quite exciting, and that is really to say, what is it that we are now really doing? We are using what we are calling an inside-out approach. What do we mean by that? If you looked at our history, you will know that there was a time where we were utilizing consultants between 2007 and 2009. Home Affairs has many glossy documents, strategic plans, and so on. So really, the inside-out approach is to say, everybody now needs to begin to do the work themselves. And that's the key change in terms of the approach that we are following. However, if you also look at the approach, what is very important about it is that when Minister looked at wanting to change this department and to make it be an a department of excellence, she then firstly focused on her leaders. She went out to look for good leaders. We have a new CEO or Director General. We have a new CFO. She has a, what do you call it, CFO qualification. She has a Chartered Accountant qualification, I beg your pardon. She went out, got a new HR Director, new counter-corruption head, new IS person, and so on. So this actually shifted the way we began to work completely. The strategic roadmap that we've actually crafted will now be delivered by all employees themselves. And what we are also saying is that it's a way of us now beginning to engage people in a different way, so that they are able to now begin to collectively acknowledge what it is that they are required to actually deliver on. What we have also done in our approach is we've ensured that we've created committees, starting from our executive all the way down, right up to our middle management layer, where we will meet on a monthly basis to check how are we doing against whatever decisions were actually made at the level with Minister for implementation. We've also instituted what we call a top 300, and in this top 300, we get every branch head from every province coming in to sit to tell us what are the challenges they are facing currently and what is it that we need to be doing to make the changes that we need to make. We've also come up with a lot of practical things that we are doing, simply because it's important that in delivering anything that we are required to deliver on, it needs to be understood by everybody within the organization. Now, the pictures that I'm showing here, in essence, are basically saying we've had to collaborate, bring all our people together using various mechanisms or meetings. We've had to review our organizational design and structure from the top three tiers of leadership and below. We've also taken into account the fact that we are working with diverse people. We've had to look at our skills, conduct a skills audit in the back end, and we are now also moving towards identifying individuals and looking at their readiness, agility to actually begin to move forward within the organization, and through that whole employee value proposition that I described. So our approach is really collaborative, where we are communicating much more. We are using various communication channels to do that. We are trying our best to actually engage our people, and what we are finding is that this approach is actually yielding a lot of results. I'm not going to read all of them because I've already run out of time, but if I could just pick one or two of them, the one that is really great is the fact that we have a leaders forum where we only have the top 120 leaders participating in meetings with the minister directly, and what it aims to do is that we need to have a shared mindset and a purpose about where it is that we want to take the organization to. If there are any people management practices that need to be dealt with, for example, performance management, when we initially joined, there were no people contracting at all. We are now sitting at a far greater than 90% compliance rate on that, simply because we took a decision not to pay any incentives until people began to contract correctly. We've also conducted an employee satisfaction survey. There were 10 key factors that we looked at in the survey, and we understand at the outcomes of the survey that we are moving in the right direction. People are understanding that strategic direction within the organization. And we've also created stakeholder forums with the communities, and they are eyes and ears, and they're assisting us with all any corrupt activities that are taking place within the department. So I think I will leave it at that, and just to say that our approach, what is important about it, is that we also want to have measures. And the key measures that we will be using is employee satisfaction survey. We'll also be using the customer satisfaction survey. We're actually aware that we've already shifted quite substantially from about a 60% to about a 72% satisfaction rate amongst our customers. And we've also received a number of awards already in the Department of Home Affairs. So thank you very much. Wow.